Not only is Calvin back, but he is back to back. Everybody needs to beware on the Pro Tour as we get into the final legs of our West Coast swing. Hello and welcome. I'm Rich Slaton. That's Bob Sherriff. This is Hold My Bag, and today we have a very special guest. You might recognize his face from the pre-shows on Disc Golf Network, Dustin Mouret. Dustin, we're super duper pumped to have you today on the show to give you your insight and, of course, get in the mix on our picks.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept that you guys have formulated on how you go about the fantasy aspect of disc golf. So I'll try my best to make some good picks here.
Well, Bob, speaking of good picks, I want you to talk us through a little bit of the OTB Open, and we'll start big picture. Let's start with the best five, the best of the bunch, the top players from each of our five categories. Calvin Heimburg taking down the number 1 through 10 spot. Randon Lotta with another good performance, best player in the 51-plus category. Who impressed you the most this weekend?
I mean, it's got to be Calvin Heimburg coming back-to-back like you talked about. First off, Dustin, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. It's also really fun to watch another human being react to the energy levels that Rich does when he opens up the show with the intro. It's funny watching your face. It's like, that's my reaction every single time. I never get used to it. But yeah, no, great event. Huge win for Calvin. It's feeling a lot like 2023 again. What are your thoughts, Rich?
Well, obviously, I'm really excited to see my son's favorite player back in the mix because now he wants to watch disc golf more, which is super fun for me. Talking about all this, though, I think what stands out to me the most is Gavin Rathbun, who jumped from that Tier 4 category, from that 36 through 50 ranking, into our 21 through 35 ranking area. And not only did he not lose a beat, Bob, he is our golden bagger for the week. Dustin, I mean, is this the year of Rathbun?
It very well could be. Obviously last year he was dealing with injury. Was obviously limited his performance, limited what events he could even play at, things of that nature. He was going through sponsorship changes as well. Obviously leaving Dynamic Disc. Now he's on to the open bag system, but not even one of the traditional open bag players that are sponsored by like a retailer or something like that. Like he really is just kind of like out on his own, other than maybe a couple of like small little discs that he does with Gateway and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean he had flashes last year, and he definitely has talent. He's an all-around good player, but this year he's really put it together. He's been a consistent force on tour. He probably will wind up being the breakout player of the season.
So far, it's been a pretty. I mean, he and Joey Buckets may be going back and forth, but Rathbun certainly very consistent right now. So that was our golden bagger, the player who best outperformed the average of their category. Now, Dustin, I'm going to put you on the spot here. This is a little game show we call "Can You Guess This Guy?" Because this is our sandbagger, the player who most outperformed their rank. Let's take a look at him right now. This player was ranked 159, finished ranked 13. Dustin, can you guess this player?
Yeah, it's called Montgomery. It's pretty. I mean,
and a great finish for him. Do you expect this to be Colton's best finish this year, or is there more in store for him?
Colton's a weird one, man, because I feel like he'll randomly pop up and have a big finish. Like obviously he won Waco. Was that the COVID year?
That sounds right.
Waco. I can't remember what it was. Then he's also randomly had big finishes like the one that you just mentioned. Obviously coming 13th at OTB is pretty big for him. That's his biggest finish of the year by far. I think other than that, he's been mostly like in the 50s range most of his other tournaments. So yeah, that's a big one for him. Will it be his best finish of the year? Probably, but I could see him maybe fitting in another few top 20, top 25 finishes here and there along the season.
Well, we'll see if he can make it happen. Bob, this one, I think you personally, when we get into our final award, maybe, I don't know what the word is for an award that's bad, but I think that when you get into this final award, this one's going to hurt you because this is a player you like a lot. Our first available this week, Chris Clemens. And this was not the worst. This is by no means the worst first available award we've had this year. 35th overall, finished 61st. We've had some absolute dives happen this season. But Chris Clemens has not put it together this weekend.
Yeah, it was a rare miss to see from Chris Clemens. It's kind of that group where you used to be able to rely on them for consistent top 25 finishes. And now it just feels like every other tournament they might be doing some sort of like outcome like you're seeing right now. If I remember correctly, too, it was like there were quite a few players that were gunning for that award. There was a lot of the sort of
Evan
like last
Scott,
year's name. Yeah.
Cole Redolin, Luke Humphreys, James Conrad. Like so many players in our tier 2 and tier 3 categories ranked 11 through 20 or 21 through 35 who kind of tanked it at OTB.
Justin, I'm genuinely curious. Like we've been seeing this a little bit. I mean, James Conrad he's won this award once this year. I forget what the event was. It may have been Texas State's. I don't remember exactly, but he's not placing like we're used to. What are your thoughts on him?
James Conrad, I mean, that's an interesting one, right? Because I even feel like last year he wasn't particularly doing well all of the time. Like he would occasionally pop up and have a big event here and there. He was obviously in the Tour Championship, so he did well enough to make it there and did fine there. But he also did have some doozies last year, for 100% honest. And even going back to 2022, that is where I feel like the drop-off happened, was between 2022 and 2023. Because 2022, the guy was pretty consistently in the top 25. I feel like you kind of count on him, maybe 30th or something like that if he wasn't top 25. But I really feel like you saw the dip last year, where he started kind of plummeting more into like the 50 to 60 range at some tournaments. And it seems like that's carried over into this season.
That raises an interesting question, and I'll pose this one to you, Bob, first, and then Dustin, if you want to take it afterwards. Do you think that the ratings react quickly enough to players' ups and downs, or is it important that we have this kind of 2-year window to protect those, not ratings, but rankings? Or do the rankings need to be more reactive than the current kind of 2-year window that we have?
I mean, again, I guess that's kind of like, what is the point of rankings and how are you using them? I don't know. It's a good question.
For a game like ours, it's so critical.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely am not looking at again, obviously focus on tiers in terms of making picks, but like there are folks no offense, Dustin, I know he's your hometown hero, but Matty O in the top 10 is not, I don't know if he's ever been a top 10 pick for me. I mean, again, he's a consistently amazing player. No question. It's just like, top 10 is one of those ones where it feels like it can go either way, there are certain players where it's tough to get. How am I saying them? This is a good question, Rich. Let me ask you, Dustin, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, here's the thing. Like, you really have two different ways you can go about rankings, right? You can go one that's like more cumulative and you try to cover a wider area of time. And you try to be fair about a player's consistency over a stretch of, several months or something like that, where even if they've had a couple of poor finishes here and there, which would certainly impact you in like a more short-term power ranking, you're still being rewarded for maybe you were finishing in the top 10 on a regular basis. You just happen to have a couple of bad tournaments. So your power ranking's really bad, but your cumulative ranking is still pretty good, right? And it's probably more fair to who you are as a player on average. I think the issue becomes what the parameters are, because I think for a power ranking, you probably only want to go like maybe the last 4 to 5 tournaments for like a power ranking. Like if you really want like a snapshot of the most current version of the player, so to speak. But I do think 2 years is absolutely absurd. Like, I think that is way too long of a range to be going on for a world ranking. I mean, so much changes in 2 seasons, right? I mean, look at how much Paul Macbeth has changed in 2 years, where he places now compared to where he was placing 2 years ago. Look at how much AB has improved in the last 2 years, just this season. So those are just 2 examples that stick out to me. So yeah, I think that you have to tighten the margins a little bit. I think if you want a more cumulative one, I think like half a season is fair, maybe 6 months, something like that. Obviously it's a little bit more tricky beginning of the season because you have to rely on last season's results a little bit more because you don't have enough results built up yet. But I think maybe like a 6 month ish is probably a good like longer term snapshot.
I don't mind that. It raises a weird question, right? Like, hey, you win Worlds last year, and then now we're 9 months out, and that Worlds win, is that suddenly tossed, right? Like, that's a kind of a hard margin to find. But I think we're probably all kind of across the board, like, hey, 2 years might be a little long, but who knows exactly. Bob, you don't agree? You think 2 years might be fine?
No. I guess my one question is like, what's the point of doing it post-season? Like, I mean, what other sport carries over year after year? There's obviously where you finished off last year and where you're starting this year, and maybe there's some correlation that helps make that like standings. But like, what's the point? What are we using these numbers for?
You know what we're using them for, Bob? So that we can have the ability to make picks in the first week of Hold My Bag, because otherwise we're picking from nobody. That's why we have them. So thank you, Statmando, and to the PDGA for making rankings.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where those past results provide you the storylines you need early in the season when you haven't developed enough storylines yet for the current season. But then I think like right now we're halfway through the season. are roughly close to it, right? I mean, we're already approaching June, so I mean, we're basically hitting the halfway point. I think now you can kind of start dropping off talking about 2023 and just kind of focus on 2024.
Well, let's focus on 2020 now and go ahead and congratulate our winner from the OTB Open, Mick Min Cherokee, with a pretty phenomenal, I mean, minus 104, which is not that far off of the possible best minus 119 you could have shot. Leading off with your boy there, Gannon Burr, Paul Macbeth with a good weekend overall. A couple of Gavins, which we've been seeing this a lot this season, Bob. The Gavin duo getting in there. And then Sully Tipton with a great round as well. So congrats to McMinn Cherokees for your win. And, of course, the rest of you guys. And you'll find that I'm in that tied for 10th area with 5 players coming in under 88, minus 88. And the most important thing, though, Bob, not only did I get a great weekend this year, the OTB, with my Garrett Gurthie pick paying off in spades, but now that puts me 3 in a row, leading you on the season 5-3. Bob, your thoughts?
That I'd like to win the next one, I guess, would be my initial thoughts. No, it's congratulations again to McMinn Cherokees. Man, I swear, like, people, once they start realizing that if they win, we're going to have to pronounce their username on this show, are going to start getting weirder and more complicated to do. But
this person here checking in on the memes, number 2.
I like that one. That one rolls right off the tongue. But I mean, again, this is another first-time player who took it down, which is obviously insanely annoying if you're someone who's been playing week after week and not pulling up a win. It gets harder and harder, right? I mean, it went from you and me to 50 to 80 to now we're in the hundreds of players each week, and it's only going to get harder. And so congratulations to him. And it's actually kind of interesting because even in the top 10, only a couple folks won with Calvin Heimburg as their 1 through 10 pick, which was such a dominant pick, right? I mean, he had Gannon Burr in the spot who shot a respectable 18 down, but that's 9 strokes difference than Calvin Heimburg, and he still managed to win overall by 5 points. So it's it just goes to show, again, we talk about this, you're relatively new, Dustin, but the big thing about this game is it's obviously picking winners is great, but you got to pick that 51 and above spot just as importantly, right? Because it all factors in.
Well, speaking of picks, we've talked a lot about OTB, but now it's time to move on to Portland, which is a very different kind of course than Stockton. Very excited for the golf they're going to be playing, and we got some big picks coming in. So let's kick things off in the top of our category. We've apprised Dustin of the rules. We pick one player from each of 5 categories, one ranked 1 through 10, one from the 11th through 20th category, one who's ranked 21st through 35th, someone ranked 36th through 50th, and someone ranked 51 or higher. And the combined score of those 5 players makes your score for the event. So Dustin is not handcuffed like Bob and I are. We cannot pick the same player. Dustin can do whatever he wants. So, Bob, I'm
going to attempt to not pick the same players as you guys, but we'll see.
Oh,
I'm going to attempt it. It just depends. Like, I have a couple of spots that I can't really budge on, but we'll see.
Okay, that's fascinating.
And let me ask real quick, Rich, for those at home. So when Rich was explaining this game to Dustin, apparently he didn't get as deep into the rules as he should have. And so Dustin over here played a much more difficult game where he thought he was picking out who will end up in each of these categories.
True.
Yeah.
So if we don't mind, Dustin, I'm really, if you still have these picks written down, I would love to understand who you had as the different version of this game.
Well, so let's hit those on each category. I want to hear that. That's a great call out, Bob. Let's kick things off in our tier 1 picks. So, Bobby, are you ready to go?
Yeah, count them down.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Yep, of
there's
course.
Only one right answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's multiple right answers here, but like, how are you not going to follow this streak? And by the way, we're not allowed to pick the same person, but we went from no one can have that player to now we switch off who gets to have the player of their choice. So
yeah,
fantastic. I knew this was going to happen. That's why I verified this with you beforehand.
Yeah, I know you did.
On Vinny, Rich, who do you have? Who's your backup?
This is going to be one of the hardest. This is the biggest. I every time I've taken a risk this season, it has not paid off well for me. But here's my risk pick. And I'm curious what Dustin when he weighs in here. Yep, it's Isaac. I'm going Isaac. Yep. That's my risk pick this week.
Roll.
It is a huge dice roll, but he's like, it seems like he's getting a little bit better. He's due for a good performance. He played well here. I think he finished I want to say 4th here last year. I feel like it's at some point Isaac has to stop being like the player he was when he was 15. I don't even know what he's doing right now. And so I knew you were going to take Vinny. I'm making the pick right here. Dustin, am I dead in the water here with this Isaac Robinson pick?
What's your pick?
Okay, we'll start with my pick. My pick's Gannon Burr, just to be different from you on the Vinny thing. I mean, it's kind of hard not to pick the guy who's only finished outside the top 10 a single time this entire season, 13th at OTB Open. Obviously won a tournament, came second at a couple of tournaments. It's been, pretty much hovering around the top 5, hovers around the top 2 in the standings and the world rankings. He's done well at this event in the past. He's been the top 10 both times he's played the Portland Open in the last couple of years. I think Gannon Burr, the consistency is there. I think some other names you could have put here, by the way, I think AB is scary because his last couple of events have been a little bit more quiet than what he's done the rest of the year. And then I think Ricky Wysocki is a sleeper pick in this spot as well. If you want to go that route, he's also been pretty consistently in the top 10, just like Gannon Burr, but Burr's been a bit better. So that's why I went with him.
All right. Burr has been
interesting, Dustin. Real quick, if you before mine, Rich, do you ever read, who's the guy that does the recaps every week? It's really interesting. It's kind of satire, but he does breakdowns. Do you know who I'm talking about? He does little write-ups about each tournament. Oh God, what's it going to be? Anyways, he works for Ultimate Disc Golf Ultimate. This is obviously the worst anecdote.
Ulti World Disc Golf.
Yeah, but he kind of called out and said Ricky Wysocki doesn't win another tournament in 2024. What are your thoughts on that?
Interesting.
He hasn't won one yet, has he?
That's what I'm saying. He says no tournament for Ricky Wysocki in 2024.
I just don't. The way he's playing, I don't see how he wouldn't eventually get one. I mean, the thing is, though, he has to navigate tough waters, right? Like, you have to beat out Calvin, Gannon, AB, Simon when he's here. He's on, especially at courses like this one. Eagle's now back in the fold. So I do think it'll be difficult, but I can't. Ricky's longevity, I think, is so respectable that you just have to consider how many top 5s he's had this year. And he's been in the running multiple times, right?
Sure.
He came very close to beating AB at one of the tournaments earlier this year. Like, he was on his heels, charging. Like, I mean, AB really had to hold on deep to get that win. So I think Ricky could definitely at least score one win before the season is ending.
It's Al P. Jackson, by the way. Do you know who I'm talking about? Al P. Jackson?
No idea who that is.
Oh, man.
The only person I know from Multi-World is Charlie Eisenhood, so I don't know anybody else from there.
Okay. I'll send it over to you afterwards. Anyways, yeah,
that sounds like a crazy hot take.
Yeah, it is. Like it's a bold statement to make of all the players to say that they're not going to win a tournament.
And you know what? I think that if there's a player of the players who should get one win this season, who are most likely to not, I would put Ricky on that list. Like, of players who should get a win, but might end up just holding a bunch of 2s, 3s, and 4s on the season. Especially like after the way he looked. Was it at DDO? Where he just where he gave it up to Calvin. Yeah, it was at EDO where he gave it to Calvin. He just looked so shook. I just don't know if he has the same. I don't know if he can ignore the footsteps of all these killers behind him on Sundays. I think he'd have to play from behind and be the footsteps rather than have the footsteps behind him. That's my thought.
Yeah. I mean, I think people that are more on the hot seat than Ricky, though, I think Isaac's on the hot seat, your pick. I mean, he's the guy who won 2 majors last year, and he's struggled this year at some tournaments, if we're being 100% honest. Like, he's been nowhere near what we thought. So that's why it's an interesting dice roll on your part to choose him here. Maybe this is the redemption arc and you get to cash in on it. But I would say Isaac's been more trouble than Ricky is if you're just going by the season as far as, like, who needs a win doesn't have one yet. Kyle Klein kind of comes to mind as well as someone who hasn't really shown a shot at a win yet where you think he probably should. So,
really? I mean, Kyle Klein had a hot beginning of 2024, no? I mean, he
had some second at Austin. Like, he had some pretty good performances, but he's definitely cooled off a little bit. And I think you're right. Isaac is definitely the risky pick, but last week or 2 weeks ago for OTB, I went super risky and picked a guy I've been warning Bob against with Garrett Gurthie, and Garrett paid off in spades for me. So far, I've been the comeback whisperer this year.
There you go.
And that might inform my tier 2 pick. Bob, let's get into it.
I really, since we're on the topic, I'm genuinely curious. I'm sorry, I keep peppering Dustin these questions. I just feel like the breadth of knowledge is so deep here. I'm really genuinely interested. Do you have any just initial short thoughts on what's going on with Isaac this year?
Oh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one, isn't it? I mean, here's the thing. Like, he's obviously a fantastic player, but there are certainly some aspects to his game that lack that can hurt him the overall picture. I mean, I think people forget that in 2023, like while he did win the two majors, it's not like the whole season was roses and flowers. Like he had several tournaments where he finished like 30th or worst, right? But he was pretty consistently in the top 10, top 25 throughout the entire season. And I think this year, I feel like for one, the forehand discrepancy is killing him at some of these courses. And two, I don't have any way to verify this because we can't look at season Q no stats anymore. Thanks a lot, Disc Golf Pro Tour. But I feel like his putting hasn't been as sharp this year on average compared to last year. I think he still has good rounds. He still has good tournaments, but I don't know if it's as consistent as it was last year where he was just like almost a guarantee, it felt like, when he stepped up to the green. So I think it's that, and it's probably partly mental too, right? I mean, you have as good of a season as you had the previous year. It's like, man, how do I follow it up? How do I follow up a two major winner season in this level of field going into this year where AB's coming off hot? You got all these other players who are very, very strong. I do think that a part of it is maybe mental. And he's watching his brother Ezra killing it. It's like, I think there's a lot of mental game aspects to it.
That is Rich's number one thing when it comes to making picks is unrealistic expectations or poorly set expectations from experiences before. So that makes total sense, Dustin. I appreciate the feedback. You ready to jump into the 11 through 20?
Oh yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it because I think I'm gonna start off another big comeback right here. You ready for it?
Yep. One, 2, 3. Dude, that was absolutely in my mind for this pick. What he is heating up.
Yeah, he Paul's in the mix right now. He's shooting the disc well, like he's ramping up pretty nicely. I think that really all it is once his putter gets going, the way that he can really putt. I think that's the best thing, right? Is like he doesn't have to solve like a big injury problem right now. Doesn't have to solve like distance or upshot issues. He just has to get his putter going, and Paul can get his putter going. I think that a nice little layoff from OTB is nice. So yeah, I'm doubling down. This is the week of redemption. That's what this is. We're on redemption week right now.
You know, I really like that pick. It was definitely someone I considered. I mean, I went with Andrew Presnell, who, speaking of like expectations throwing you off your next one, really bucked that idea when after finishing up number 1 in Champions Cup, he came 5th at OTB Open. Dustin, who's your pick?
I'm going with Ezra Robinson as my pick. And I feel like it's kind of self-explanatory. I mean, the guy is 6th in the point standings right now for the season. He's had a lot of good finishes throughout the course of the year. And then if you just look at his most recent results, I know some of this is not Pro Tour stuff, but still, I mean, he won the Masters Cup, second at Cascade Challenge against a pretty good field, despite the fact that it wasn't a elite event. It was a Q Series. He was 8th at OTB Open. He's been pretty consistently placing in or near the top 10 throughout the course of the season. He looks like he's really hitting a stride. He was hitting a stride last year, to be honest, when he won that silver event. But now it's like he's found some consistency to go with that splash. And so Ezra Robinson is my pick in that category for sure.
All right, there we go.
I've been hot on Ezra Robinson. Both Ezras this year for me, I just felt like we're ready to break out at the beginning of 2024, and watching him succeed or do so well has been really awesome. So the
worst thing for you is when the Ezras went into the same category and you couldn't pick both of them anymore because they used to be split up before we got them both into our tier 2. All right, so McBeast, Prez, and Ezra Robinson. That's our picks for tier 2. Let's jump into our tier 3 picks, the 21 through 35. And I have a strong feeling that I'm going to get that the pendulum swings for me because I think we're going to go the same way here, unless Bobby gets weird. So let's go ahead and do our tier 3. Ready for it?
3, 2, 1.
3. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, how are you not going to pick him now? I mean, I know it's there's quite a few picks in here, man. We're not normally picking the same players every time, by the way, Dustin. Nope. This is like usually like maybe once. We've gotten multiple events without picking the same guy. But the guy is so hot right now, and it just seems like the kind of course that lends really well to his game. And as you mentioned, Dustin, he's having a year. So I guess I have to go second pick, right? Because this one's yours.
And I'm going to guess it's Babcock.
Give me the bucket.
Oh, Joey Buckets. I'm a little surprised with you going Joseph Anderson.
Why's that?
Because, A, you like players who have good history at this course. And I don't know when I don't think Joey didn't play here even last year, I think. And I also know you don't like players who underperformed the last week. And this guy checks both those boxes. Doesn't have a lot of history here and didn't play well last week.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I think there's a number of good players that you could have picked in this category, but I just feel like the OTB was more of an anomaly. When you look at his performances at like 6th at Champions Cup, 9th at chess.com, like this just seems like it's the kind of tournament or course that lends well to his game.
Well, we'll see where he ends up. Dustin, who you getting here in our tier 3 category?
All right, so I was gonna try to pick someone different, but
we took the 2 picks.
You know what? I'm doing it anyway.
All right.
Anyway, Gavin Babcock.
Boom.
The other good pick in this category, I think.
I had Gavin Rathbone on my sheet. He was my pick, but I'm trying to challenge myself, just like you guys do, to not pick the same as the other people. So, I mean, Rathbone's been on a heater the last 3 tournaments. He 4th at OTB, 5th at Las Vegas Challenge, which is a heavily attended event by Pro Tour players, 8th at DDO. Champions Cup, didn't do so hot, but it's a way different style of course than what he's about to play. He came 7th at Jonesboro, which is another open course. So he's been doing pretty well at the open courses this year. And to be different from you guys, I'll go ahead and take the bullet here and go with Babcock.
Yeah, I support you on that one. And I've been telling Bob, because he's been holding Champions Cup against people, but I've been telling Bob that you cannot hold anybody having trouble at Northwoods Black against them when it comes to any other course. So I like that. I like you not holding that against Babcock here.
Yeah.
Strong pick. Gavin's one of those interesting players where it's either going to be top 10 or back 50, I feel like, just based on this year's performances. It's just like he's either on or he's off, but he's been on a heater the last couple.
Yep. You're absolutely right. Well, let's get into the scary run now. Let's get into the make or break picks. And coming up next, our tier 4 spot, someone ranked 35th through 50th. So our 36 through 50 here. 36 through 50, our tier 4 spot. Bob, I think I'm going to blow your mind with this one. You ready for this one?
Don't do it. Don't choose it. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
I'm not taking Bobby B from you. I am riding I jumped on the Garrett train at the right time, and I am not getting off. That's 3 events in a row with improving results. Top 30 at Champions Cup, 21st at DDO. Now it's a top 10. This is the West Coast swing. Garrett's. I'm staying on him as long as we're in the West. I'm sticking with Garrett, unless he totally destroys me this weekend.
I wish you had seen the just tall glass of haterade he gave for Garrett Gurthie in the beginning of the season, Dustin. I mean, he called him washed. He said his whole family was bad at disc golf. I mean, the things that this guy said, it was offensive.
I said his jerky didn't taste good. I was just throwing heat at him.
Now that's just not right. I mean, the jerky's pretty good.
No, I mean, look, I think that Garrett could not throw the disc very well earlier this season, and the results definitely showed it. And I don't know if maybe he was working out some kinks or if he had a back problem or whatever it is. But then when he had a pretty good showing at Champions Cup, I was like, all right, if you're cashing at Champions Cup, you're doing at least something right there. And so I decided to jump on that train again for DDO. And then, or not until OTB. I was like, oh no, he looked good at Champions Cup, then better at DDO. So I jumped on the train for OTB, and I feel like I like it right now, Dusty.
I hear you. That's fair enough, man.
What about you? What you got?
We'll do a little dice roll.
Ooh, we like that.
Going Jakub Semerad.
Okay.
Is he playing?
Yes.
I don't think he's in this one, is he?
Is he not? I thought
he's still over there in Europe.
Is he?
Let's double check it.
If it is, I'll pick someone else. It's fine. I thought I saw him on the list, but I could have saw someone else's name.
Let's go ahead. I'm bringing up the Portland Open right now, and I'm going to double check Jakub, and I'm not seeing him here.
Yeah, he's not there.
Okay, my fault.
Unfortunate. We've been there before.
All right, so let me ask this then. Let me see if this player's in the tournament. Let me go Casey White. Is he in the tournament?
Casey plays everything.
He is in the tournament. He is my backup pick. That is a very good pick.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go with Casey White. Didn't have as good a performance at OTB as I would have liked to have seen from him going into this one, but still near the top 20. Was good at Vegas. Played well at Champions Cup. Just generally speaking, has been kind of hovering around that top 15 range. It feels like on average throughout the season. So that is my pick, Casey White.
Dustin, I'll take an exception here. I don't think he played well or played okay at Champions Cup. I think he played amazing at Champions Cup.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then his finger ripped open, and you saw him trying to glue it back together. Even if like he was still able to throw the disc pretty well, like the mental focus being taken off of that one. I think we were one errant throw, one like the disc just rips your finger away from Casey White being a major champion. So I completely love this pick. I think that had that finger rip not happened, I mean, I think he had like a 4 or 5 stroke lead at the point when that finger rip happened, and he was still he wasn't showing cracks yet. He was playing really well. It was like 5 holes into the round. I'm a big Casey White fan, so I like this pick a lot.
Yeah. He also had Casey White on his card for Champions Cup, in case you weren't sure.
I did. That is true. I did have him for Champions Cup. I felt very good
I
about
love
that
it.
pick.
Going into the big one, 51 and above. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm so glad it's mine to keep, by the way, because I know for a fact, I'm telling you, this is going to be one of those ones where we picked all the same players.
No, because you're picking Randon Lotta, and I didn't do it. So here we go.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
I didn't pick Juna.
Okay.
I didn't take Juna.
Juna feels like an absolute steal of a deal.
Tell me why.
I mean, first off, he came 15th in this event last year. He's having for a 51 and above player, he's having a pretty good year. I mean, he hasn't, other than Jonesboro, his last 4 tournaments he's ended up 30th or below, and he came in 4th at the Discraft Cascade Challenge. So this one, I mean, normally you're all about European picks as a value picks, but I'm surprised you didn't even take a look at him.
No, I mean, it was between Randon Lotta and Zach Nash for me here, and Lotta was like a big, I think he's maybe the biggest boom pick potential in this category, right? Like 11th at Texas, 3rd at OTB, multiple finishes above rank. But I like the way Zach Nash did the disc in Stockton. He cashed here last year, and the big one for me was he shot one stroke off the hot round here last year with a 54. But in the hot round, he shot a 55. So I think he can bring in some confidence knowing that he knows he can score on this course. So I just feel like Zach has a good chance of outperforming what he did last year and outperforming this 51 plus rank. Dustin, we've given you some information. I don't know if you were locked in before we got here, but are you gonna jump on one of our picks? Are you taking us in a new direction? What's happening?
So I was between 3 different picks on this. I was thinking Sullivan Tipton was one I was thinking of. Kiefer the third I was thinking of. And then the one I'm going to ultimately go with, which is the Hail Mary recency bias pick, is the Colton Montgomery, ranked 124th in the world, coming off the back of a top 15 finish at the OTB Open, gaining some confidence at a few smaller events prior to that. That slow build, the sandbagger himself that you referred to. I think he's coming into this event. I think he's going to play pretty well. I think part of it, besides the recency bias, is that maybe I drank the Kool-Aid a little bit, but I was watching one of the recent vlogs that he does with Kona Montgomery on her YouTube channel, and supposedly he had figured something out in his backhand form that he was feeling really confident with and felt like he had kind of solved the puzzle, so to speak, about his game going forward this season. So I'll take his word for it that he figured something out, and this is why the results are improving, and hopefully he keeps it up and, this dice roll works out for me. I
really love the pick. Bob, you seem tickled by that pick right now.
No, I mean, it's because I did the exact same thing at OTB Open where I picked, I'm going to blank out on it right now.
But were you did the same thing where, wasn't your strategy just you picked the guys who were the best of the box? Yeah, you picked Connor.
No, I picked Connor Rock, who had won the Las Vegas the week before, and then also had a breakout performance. And it didn't tank me like you thought it would. He didn't do amazing. He shot, I think he ended up 2 under. I forget where he ended up at OTB Open towards the bottom, but
no, it wasn't your worst here.
Or 7 under. Yeah, he did pretty well overall. I mean, he wasn't no Albert Tam, obviously, but who was Albert Tam in the 51 and above category?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the pick though. Dustin, what do you think about the game, man? How you feeling about going into Portland Open with the picks you've made?
I think this is an interesting format. I really do. So yeah, I feel pretty good about most of my picks. The only one that's kind of wild and out there is the Colton Montgomery pick for me. But I think all the rest of the picks, besides me not taking Gavin Rathbun in the 21 to 35 category, I feel pretty good about them.
Let's do a little review here. Dustin going with Gannon Burr, Ezra Robinson, Gavin Babcock, Casey White, and Colton Montgomery. Bobby taking Vinny, Presnell, Joey Buckets, 2 buckets there on the way. Vinny Buckets and Joey Buckets. Bobby B and Juna, And then I'm rolling a lot of dice here. Isaac Robinson, Paul Macbeth, Gavin Rathbun, Garrett Gurthey, Zach Nash. I mean, I'm trying to rewind the clock on 2 of these picks here. We'll see if it pays off for me. We're very, very pumped. There's still, if you're watching this, this is out the day before we kick things off for the Portland Open. It's a 4-day event, so get your picks in if you have not gotten them in yet. Make sure you get those down. It's going to be a really fun one. Of course, you go to holdmybagdg.com to make all of those picks free to play. And as Bob was talking earlier about newbies coming in and getting those wins, we are expanding the prize pool and getting ready to amend some of how you earn your ability to get discs and win cool stuff by playing free fantasy disc golf here with us. So keep an eye on that. Stuff in development that will be coming out fairly soon. Bob, final thoughts before we get ready to move on and get this Portland thing kicked off.
That it was awesome having Dustin on. This is our first time having a guest as on the show. It's been awesome and just like massive knowledge, super chill dude. Thanks for joining us, man. This was really fun.
Yeah, it's been fun getting more and more involved in the disc golf side of things, coming from the esports world. And yeah, this is a fun show, a fun format, and I'm glad I finally didn't get destroyed by Rich again, like I did in debate night. He was calm with the green screen today, so I appreciate that. And yeah, there we go.
Well, don't you worry, I'll be back out there fairly soon for Bob, for Dusty. I'm Rich Slaton. We'll see you back here next time on Hold My Bag.